Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this morning's episode of Trending. As always, it's brought to you in association with Iconic Coffee. Head over to shop.iconic.com, use the code TRENDING, and you get 10% off. I'm joined today by Richard Willett, not my brother, as usual on a Monday. How are you, Rich? You okay, mate?
Not your brother, but your brother in many other ways. How's your saddle bit,
Mate,
feeling?
don't. My legs feel all right.
No.
For anyone around the world that isn't aware of what we're talking about, cycled 200 miles across Thursday and Friday, and then played ice hockey yesterday. So my legs burn a little bit. My backside, without being too graphic, given it's sort of breakfast time.
Yeah,
Unpleasant. Unpleasant, Richard.
Yep.
But we've raised
wasteland.
nearly £11,000 for vaccine-injured people now, and we're hoping that's going to keep going up because we're going to keep the fundraiser going probably for about another month and a half while Tom, our very, very talented director in the other room.
And handsome.
He's very handsome too. Puts together a documentary because we filmed, the lead up and afterwards and all of it. So hopefully we'll continue to raise some money and be able to help some people. Rich,
well done,
right,
guys. Amazing.
Let's kick off then. You're going first with a very predictable story, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, they're all predictable. That's the nature of what we do. And we've been predicting this for a long time. People like your dad, people like many, many others that came before him and predicting this was going to happen for a long time because it's been written. Israel cuts electricity to last facility in Gaza receiving Israeli power. I mean, that's a war crime, for one.
Yeah.
How many more can they do? It's utterly disgusting, but on it goes. And the world just stands by and doesn't mention it. I mean, to be fair, this has got to the point now where, what could people do? Because the world is aware they're just going ahead and doing it. It's like the bully in the playground is just bullying, and everyone knows that's a bully and they shouldn't really be there. But who steps in to stop this? Because this is absurd now. Israel says it has cut the flow of electricity to the last facility in Gaza that was still receiving power from the Israeli Electric Corporation. And I just signed an order for the immediate halt of electricity to the Gaza Strip, Israeli Energy Minister El Cohen said in a statement Saturday, probably cartwheeling as well at the same time, adding that the country would operate all of the tools that are at disposal to ensure the return of all hostages. How about stop funding Hamas? That'll probably help. Do you know what I mean? Exactly. So here we go again. They're just basically suffocating the guys to death in literal terms sometimes. Israel cut off electricity supplies to Gaza following the Hamas attacks of October the 7th, which we know Hamas was fostered into being by the likes of Netanyahu many, many years ago, in which more than 1,200 people were killed and 251 taken hostage, apparently, allegedly. But the Israeli Electric Corporation has since reconnected power to a wastewater treatment facility following a government directive. Basically, have some crumbs. It's, how much more can we see that they're rolling out this? And every story that we talk about today ties into the same agenda, doesn't it? And everybody goes, what are you going on about? You're not talking about the UK as much. And I get that. I totally get that. But it all ties back into this one same agenda, which is fulfilling these biblical madness. It's not a prophecy, it's a plan. What do you think, Gaz? Because that's all I can come up with is that that's what they're doing.
I mean, it's all well and good people saying, it's not Britain, but when these things escalate and kick off, as they will, because they're designed to, then it's British lives on the line as well. So it actually does affect British people, and also British taxpayer money gets sent to all these different regions where all these manufactured conflicts are happening. So it does affect us. You were right at the start to say, Richard, it's a war crime because it is. Cutting off electricity and water supplies, food supplies to a civilian population is a war crime. Now, of course, that was put to Sir Keir Starmer, wasn't it? And he basically said that Israel had the right to do that. When, as someone that was formerly a human rights lawyer, apparently, he would know it was a war crime. And if he doesn't know it's a war crime, he's an idiot. But then he is an idiot, so now I don't know. Now, like you say, no one's really saying anything about it. Yet when Russia attacks a Ukrainian energy facility, everyone's up in arms. It's outrage. It's a war crime to attack civilian infrastructure. but only when they do it, not when they do it, which goes to show that, there's good victims and bad victims in these lunatics' minds. Now, the plan of it all, Rich, as we've spoke about from October 7th, is it's about the greater Israel. It's about getting rid of people from Gaza. It's about getting people out of the West Bank, which we're going to come to in a later story. It's about getting people out of Syria, out of Lebanon, out of Jordan, out of Egypt, up to the Nile. This whole thing is completely coordinated, and this is just the latest aspect of it. They can blow up people in Gaza, as they have done, tens of thousands of people, but that doesn't look so good, really. So actually, if you can get them to voluntarily leave by starving them out, or by cutting energy infrastructure, so that this particular story is of a wastewater facility, so you're going to end up with raw sewage in the streets, which has already been happening. Then that's another way of doing it, and I understand it in the sense of, you want these people to leave. These people are tied massively to the land. They don't want to leave. So you make it so bad for them that they will leave of their own volition. That's the plan. It's pretty obvious.
Well, Trump's sitting there in a conference next to Netanyahu, each wearing a different coloured tie to represent their polarities. And he openly says, I don't know how the Palestinians would live there. It's a wasteland. The guy next to you, created. And this is like the weird Marvel world we're living in right now. Everybody can see the emperor's got no clothes on, and no one in that room turns around and goes, he did it.
Yeah.
Not a single one of them. They're all being too polite. We've gone beyond politeness now, I think.
Oh, completely. And when Trump was saying about the people that have died in Gaza and all this kind of stuff, Netanyahu, who's the man responsible for it, is sat there smiling. And it just goes to show these people are total lunatics. Staying with the Middle East, and just quickly, actually, Rich, like you said, that they what can people do? No one's holding them back. It's because Trump's in office now. They are so emboldened. They can do what the hell they want with Trump in office. Absolutely what they want, and that's what they're doing. But
I'd like to add to that, Gaz. The reason why they're so emboldened is because Trump's followers are so cult-like that he's emboldened, because the people that would usually push back at it, are given the platform, are no longer doing so. So that's the issue here, is that they've controlled both elements of it. The people who've got the platform are no longer doing so. You might get an Israel this and Israel that here and there, but nothing's going to be done by these people, or really spoken about in any depth of this being a Sabbatean messianic cult. And they're not going to talk about that level of it. They might stick it a bland label saying, oh, it's Israel. Well, what does that mean? It's such a bland it's such a bland label. It's like saying McDonald's was responsible for my food poisoning. Well, who at McDonald's? Who did it? It's not a thing. Israel is not something that you can go after. It's the elements within it. So they understand how to use a brand to hide behind a corporation.
Yeah, and anti-Semitism is what they hide behind as well, massively. So this story is from Syria, what's left of Syria. The headline reads, they left nobody, more than 1,000 people killed in some of Syria's deadliest violence. More than 1,000 people have died in clashes. Clashes is always vague, isn't it? So they just clashed, they bumped into each other in Sainsbury's. No, some people went in and massacred people. After violence erupted between government supporters and people thought to be loyal to the ousted President Assad. The number of deaths reported by the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights makes the 2 days of violence some of the deadliest since Syria's conflict began 14 years ago, according to the group. Now, we'll come back to this group in a minute. The government said it's responding to attacks from remnants of Assad's forces and blamed individual actions for the violence. Some 745 civilians were killed, mostly in massacres, as well as 148 pro-Assad fighters and 125 people from security forces. David Lammy, of course, the witless wonder, handed over £50 million of UK taxpayer money to these so-called rebel groups, lunatics, to support them in basically taking over Assad and rebuilding Syria. Well, this is what they're doing in rebuilding Syria. They're massacring Christians, actually, as always seems to be the way. Now, this is even more sinister. So a UN delegation is meant to be going into Syria in the next day or so, right? To have a look around and make sure everything's going okay. You know, nothing to see here. Just ignore that pile of bodies in the corner. So what these rebels, supported by British taxpayer money, have been doing is kidnapping children, right? Kidnapping children and threatening the parents of these children. Speak as we say. So in other words, tell the UN delegation that everything's fine. Or we will kill and burn your children. So these UN delegations are going to go in and say, you know, how is everything? Oh, everything's great. Everything's fine. Thank God Assad's gone. Oh, it's so much better now. Did I do okay, Mr. Terrorist? Yeah, you did great. Here's your child back. It's you know, and Britain's supporting this and has funded this. So like you said at the start of this conversation, Rich, about the fact that people go, why are you not talking about Britain? Well, we are talking about Britain. This is British money that's funding these people. It's British money that's funding the weapons that are going to kill these children potentially and have killed all these civilians. Now, it's an interesting one to come back to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, because this is an organization, right, that has been quoted from the beginning of the West-backed overthrowing of Assad going back 14 years ago. Any information about Assad's alleged chemical attacks and all the massacres of his own people and all this sort of stuff, which provided the excuse, you know, for the West to push against Assad, and for Trump, of course, to drop his mother of all bombs, Mr. Peace Lover, mother of all bombs on Syria, was this organization, which is the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. It's one man. It's one man in Coventry, right, which is about a 45-minute drive from where I'm sat now. A man that was kicked out of Syria because of his, you know, back and forth disagreements with Assad. He's very anti-Assad and was basically instrumental, as I've said, in the overthrowing of him and the acceptance of the overthrowing of him. He's now coming out saying, look how many people have been massacred by the people that I helped come in and overthrow the guy. Do you know what I mean? No sense of, ooh, I might put eyes on myself here. Unbelievable. And I see this organization quoted all the time. Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, as if it's like some big organization. They've got boots on the ground. It's one man in England. But just finally, Rich, this story to me ties in exactly the same as the previous story and the next story, which is the Greater Israel Project. A large portion of Syria is part of the Greater Israel in their minds, so they want it. So the more conflict you have there, the more turmoil you have there, the better, because then you get to a point where the world leaders have all got to come together. Something's got to be done. We need to rewrite the maps, just like they did after World War I and World War II. And also what it provides an excuse for is for Israel to expand buffer zones into Syria. Because look at what's happening. We don't want these people on our borders, even though they're never going to attack you, mate, because they never do. Weird that. So we'll just keep another military buffer zone into Syria to protect. And we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. Oh, what's going on in that military buffer zone? Oh, we're just building some settlements. Oh, okay. Well, you know that's against international law. It doesn't apply to us. And so it extends and the party rolls on.
I'd be interested if you know who funded Assad in the first place, who was backing him. Because in my mind, the way we've learnt to read things, that he was probably funded by the same people these rebels have been funded by, in terms of them all providing reasons to push this agenda on. Do you know anything about who was backing Assad?
I don't. I mean, I've got no skin in the game for any of these people, whether it be Assad, whether it be Gaddafi in Libya or whatever. But these people were clearly trying to do things that were against the will of the West. Obviously, right. Gaddafi with his African currency and stuff, and actually going, do you know what, we're going to stop being exploited by the dollar and all this, and we're actually going to, and so they had to get rid of him. And the same with Assad. Syria, my mum went to Syria. It was just before it kicked off, actually. But then she went to Iran before it kicked off, so I'm starting to wonder whether my mum's involved. But when she went to Syria, she said it was an amazing place, secular place. You had Christians and Muslims and everyone, getting on. It was absolutely fine. Obviously some people had a beef with Assad. It's fine. But it's not that country now.
No, it's not. And it rolls on, doesn't it? And then I believe these rebels are probably, as you say, providing the excuse to go in. And that matches exactly what has happened, we believe, with the research that we've done over many, many years, that Hamas was funded by the same people that provide the solution or the excuse to go in or the reason to go in to clear the way and take over. That's just the way it is. It's always the way. If you infiltrate the CIA and go in there and go, oh, it's all bad people in there doing bad things, we'll go in and we'll take it over. You put those people in there in the first place. It's just the way it works. It's Sabatinism. You go in and you sabotage it from within. It's a virus. Why do you think Bill Gates is so concentrating on viruses? He didn't talk about computer viruses. He's trying to understand or get people to understand the nature of how a virus works, functions, and the effect of a virus and how it kills from within and changes the being. So that's why they've got all of these they look at the principles and the philosophies and how things functions, the system, the cybernetics. So this next one is another group to keep an eye on. Evangelical leaders visiting Israel back annexation of Judah and Samaria. Now, faith leaders came for the Israel launch of the Conference of Christian Presidents, a new umbrella group representing tens of millions of pro-Israel Americans. So you basically got Republicans, evangelicals, Zionists, Donald Trump types there. And this is so clear. A group of conservative American evangelical leaders visiting Jerusalem on Tuesday voiced support for Israel's sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, the biblical heartland of the Jewish people, in addition to the end of Hamas rule and presence in the Gaza Strip. The remarks come as US President Donald Trump is expected to make a decision on US policy regarding the annexation of Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank. So this is the West Bank. Why is the US president making a decision on what's happening with the West Bank? This is absurd. It's none of his business. None of your business, Donald. Stay at home. Look after your own problems. It's a mess. But that's the point. That you do not have a US government. That's never been so clear. You have an Israeli government with a puppet, a messianic Chabad puppet stuck in there. And the more we point it out, you never get these guys brought up. And what I will say about Candace Owens, as much as I'm kind of concerned about some of her affiliations, not least her husband's affiliation to some of these groups, she did speak out against the Sabbateans. She's the only one who brought them up, and Chabad. So it's a very convoluted issue, whether she knows how deep it goes. She's converted to Catholicism, which I would say is the Church of Babylon. So you just don't know, really. These people put their people in there. But my point is that this is clearly just Israel has taken over the US and using them as their whipping boys now. But they have done for a long time, haven't they?
Yeah, but they're doing it out in the open now. Like you said, the emperor's got no clothes on. And the thing is, when you go high enough in any nation, in any corporation, any organization of influence, you're reaching a very, very few people at the top that oversee everything. And so on one hand, you've got these people destroying Christianity completely. I mean, it's the one religion, isn't it, that you can basically just, whatever. And then on the other hand, they're using that, Christians to support their goals in other areas and stuff. So it's quite strange to watch it play out. It is very strange. And I think a lot of how they do it is they keep things secret. So you will have these delegations that will go. I mean, some of these people are bought and paid for, but some of them might not be. Some of them might be genuine Christians. Yeah. And when they go to Israel, they get given the tour. And it's not the tour that normal people would get. They get a propaganda tour. I've been there. I went there to play football and they tried to give us the propaganda tour. I just wasn't buying a ticket. But that's what they do. And if they're doing it for little old me, they're certainly going to be doing it for these people because, these people can make a difference to them. Certainly in America, where there are a lot of evangelical Christians, they play a significant part. They play a significant part in electing a president. That's why Trump pretends to be a Christian. Yet when you go to Israel, and there's so much footage of this, it's unreal, of Christians being spat at in the street, of Christian churches being blown up and destroyed in Gaza that don't get a mention. I mean, Candice, like you mentioned Candice, she will mention it, but very few people will. We're Christians. Have you seen they've blown up a 3,000-year-old church? I'm sorry, Matt, I can't hear what you're saying. He's breaking up, sorry. Because it doesn't fit the narrative. And again, it's the greater Israel. They need Gaza, they need the West Bank. So Trump, the sheer arrogance of it, will make a decision on the annexation. And the decision is already made. We know what it is. It's that Israel can have it. course it is.
Yeah. Of course it is. And something else I'd like to point out, guys, go and have a look into something called Satan's Little Caesar. Now, this has been inserted into the narrative for the end times. Now, some people of the Christian belief system believe this has already happened, like some of the stuff has happened, tribulations, and we're in Satan's little season. But most people of the Christian faith believe that this is a time to come after the 1,000 years of Christ's reign, which is exactly the same 1,000 years, would you know, of the messianic reign of their Messiah. Matches up perfectly. So I wonder which one is true. And then after that, Satan comes out. They let him out for a little while to stretch his legs and clear away the remains of any Christians or any other religion who's managed to survive the 7 years of the tribulation, 1,000 years with cyborgs and Jesus who haven't been raptured up before the tribulations and down in their Google upload to the cloud digital rapture. And then they've got this Satan's little season where he gets to stretch his legs and kill off the rest before their world to come. Have a look at the timeline because it matches up. And what's really interesting, and I think I said this last week, is that you're watching the same movie, but you're looking at it with different subtitles. So the Christians have got one set of subtitles, and those of the Islamic faith have got another set, and those of the Jewish faith, like the main Jewish faith, have got another set. But those of this Messianic Jewish faith, and it's not a faith, it's a cult really, Lurianic Kabbalah, that very, very few have got another set of subtitles. So you're watching the same movie, but the whole context is different. So you've got to understand that it doesn't really matter what you believe. It matters what these lunatics believe that are surrounded these politicians, and that Satan's little season is what they believe is going to come in the future. Just have a look at that timeline, because right now, most of them, these messianic guys, believe that we're about to head into the 7 years of tribulation, which, oh my God, would you know, sounds like World War III, basically, where they will be living in bunkers under the ground. Zuckerberg's got a bunker, by the way. A lot going on underneath New Mexico too, and in Greenland. So, have a look at this, because these people are lunatics. Don't think of them as politicians. Don't think of this as countries. Think of this as a cult that's gone global. And then you'll kind of understand. Would you question Charles Manson? And if I said he was a mentalist and a nutter, would you go, well, no, yeah, he's all right? It's a cult. We need to get that psychology, I believe, into people's understanding. And they very much believe, look at the evidence of this messianic end times and this, third world tribulations and this world to come, which is their eighth day. So it's the seventh day is the Sabbath, which is their rest, which is their messianic era, which is the same as the 1,000 years parousia of Jesus Christ. It all matches up. So I just get people go and have a look and just see how it matches up, because I believe the Christians are being set up to be used absolutely as you just said.
Well, the thing is, people will listen to that kind of stuff and just go, oh, that sounds mad. And yeah, it does sound mad. Well, wait till you realize that the people making decisions that affect your daily lives believe in it. And want it to happen and want to enforce it. As you've mentioned before, it's not a prophecy if you make it happen. That's just you making it happen.
Exactly.
Right. Final story today. Another one of those making it happen. Digital euro. Imagine my surprise. Christine Lagarde, a woman I wouldn't trust to tell me the time in a room full of clocks. She's the president of the European Central Bank. Now, back in 2016, she avoided jail. Of course she did. When she was head of the International Monetary Fund, despite being found guilty in court for negligence after vast amounts of taxpayer money was handed to a French businessman, because that's what you do with taxpayer money, apparently. I suppose it's beat sending it to Zelensky, I guess. Not only did she avoid jail, but she kept her job at the IMF. Do you know what I mean? It's not what you know, it's who you know, isn't it? She's promoting the digital euro. Of course she is, because she's a cult asset. That's why she avoided jail and kept her job. They're expecting, because they know in advance, that the EU will approve legislation to allow the digital euro to be set for a trial launch of October. So that's how close we're getting with this. Now, Israel is following suit. They're rolling one out with a similar timeline, I believe. And of course, you've already got the digital yen in Japan, and you've got the digital yen in China. China obviously being the blueprint for the rest of us. And something that I find interesting as well this week, Rich, is the Prime Minister of Canada. A new Prime Minister has been put into office. So Trudeau, see you later, people kind. Now, this new PM of Canada is the former head of the Bank of England. So again, we've got banksters coming into government, and no doubt Canada will be bringing in a digital currency anytime soon. And of course, we're about to have the digital dollar, but it's called Trump's stablecoin because obviously, despite it being a digital dollar, essentially another central bank digital currency, he can't call it that because then people will stop thinking we're winning. So it's everywhere, Rich. The digital money, which we knew it would be. They want a cashless society. They want to be able to control everything, what you buy, when you buy it, where you travel, when you travel. It'll all be part of your digital ID, your biometric ID that will go into your social credit score. So you can't do that. Sorry, you've had too much meat this week. Computer says no, you can't pay for that. It also gives the government the opportunity to go, oh, sorry, are you a dissident of the state? Oh, you are, aren't you? Oh, yoink. Looks like your bank's empty. Looks like you can't spend any money and you can't borrow money off anyone because there's no cash. So no one can give you any money. So it looks like you're going to have to starve. Yeah, that will teach you for opening your mouth. It's like we said at the start, every story today is massively predictable. And this is just another step on the ladder towards dystopia, Rich.
Yeah, it's speeding up, isn't it? And as you said, it's not who you know, it's what you know, but it's also what you know about who you know, the blackmail that they have on people. So she's obviously got a reason to keep the high abovs in check so she can keep her job because she knows some things about them. So they're all crooks. That's what you've got to understand. They're all going to tell on each other. None of them can trust each other. So they're all just swimming in the same dirty, muddy water in the swamp. As you say, with Donald Trump there, it's a stable coin. It's not centralized. Well, who bailed out Donald Trump? Just putting it out there, it might have been Wilbur Ross, who was a Jesuit and the former head of bankruptcy for the Rothschilds. So they organized his bailout. And this is well known. Donald Trump via Wilbur Ross. So who owns Donald Trump? Well, it'll be the likes of the Rothschilds, the central bankers. So it doesn't matter if it's not a digital currency or a centralized digital currency because he's going to set the rules for the central bankers. Do you not see how it works? They tie you up in that. So they'll give it one thing saying it's an open currency, it's not digital currency or central bank digital currency. But the person who's setting the rules for that in the US will be at the mercy of the central bankers. It's not that difficult to work out. Really is like a poorly written crime thriller, isn't it?
Well, I mean, the idea, right, that someone would be in such a vast amount of debt and then get bailed out by Rothschild bankers, but be allowed to keep all of those businesses, and then because that's how it works when you go bankrupt and you lose everything. You get bailed out and you get to keep it all because that's what happens, isn't it? Of course it is.
And keep your job as well, Gaz, like that lady.
Yeah, exactly. It's because we've got a purpose for you slightly further down the line, sunshine. And that purpose is to pretend to be anti-establishment, pretend to bring down the deep state while actually the whole time just essentially hoodwinking people that would have stood up against tyranny whilst you're bringing it in. And attacking anyone who's black-pilled that points that out to you. But there you go. It's all good fun, mate. But in good news, because we have to have some good news, you made the point, Rich, that it's speeding up now. Now, I don't believe it's speeding up, excuse me, while I die. I don't think it's speeding up necessarily out of choice on their part. I feel like they feel they need to speed things up because we're getting closer to that 2030, which is a huge deadline. It's the number you hear mentioned all the time, whether it be for financial changes, whether it be for climate change, whatever, 2030, 2030, 2030. This is only 5 years away now, which is nothing. It's nothing. And so I feel like they are running to sprint to try and get things over the line. And the more they sprint and the more they run, the more they flail their arms and the more that people start to see what's going on. Which is why the Trump tie-up is so annoying.
Well, it's quite clear, isn't it? And I think once you start talking about the actual messianic type agenda, that they know that people are cottoning onto this stuff, and this is going to become of the part of the zeitgeist of people understanding this stuff now. It's embedded. now. So people are going to pass this information down. They can't get rid of the likes of this information. They just can't. People are speaking about this. And once it becomes popular, conscious level of it, a lot of people understanding there's something going on in terms of the Bible and playing that out, all of that narrative needs to speed up. And you also have the other kind of terms of it when they believe that they need to complete it. Now, Christopher John Biotis talks about this. The Freemasons, he says, was said that they needed to complete this by the year 2000. That's why we had the Twin Towers coming down, which is the gate of Apollo, which is the sigil of Saturn and all of that lot, and that all that representation. The other group that worked to a different calendar, that are part of the same cult, but they have different calendars, they said it's 2240. That seems like a long way away, but imagine 100 years ago and how quick that's gone. That's only 2 generations of people, really. So that's not a lot of people to get your mRNA jabs in and try and get people to be like semi-cyborgs, is it, Elon Musk? So although it seems like a long, long way away, it's not when you're trying to convert the whole planet into something completely different. So that's what they're speeding up for several things, because they're sprinting for the finishing line, because the finishing line's getting closer for them. They believe if they don't do it in time, they all get wiped out, and people are catching them up very, very quickly. And that's why. And then they make mistakes. You trip over your laces when you're doing that, looking behind you and trying to look in front of you at the same time. So again, very positive, because they're nowhere near getting this done. And once this is out in the zeitgeist of people understanding really what this is about, this is why we do what we do, is that the end game is this agenda, that it just falls on its head, falls on its face. And they haven't got long. And I think you can see them panicking because they're just doing absurd things now out in the open.
I think it will come down, mate. I'm, people can call me naive, the eternal optimist, but I do believe that people will win. The good will win out in the end. We've just got a bit of a spicy time coming up, but more people are awakening. And even, with the Trump, Elon Musk psyop and stuff, and like I say, it annoys me a lot. The fact that there's that many people looking for change, looking for something better, looking for something different, not satisfied with the status quo, that's a good thing. Unfortunately, they've just been sort of led down a cul-de-sac. But, once you realise you're in a cul-de-sac, you can turn around and stomp back out again. And I think a lot more people will. The more obvious it gets, I think they will. And then we can join together and have a go at fighting again.
That's it. And also, when you're right, Gaz, you're right, and you'll only be proven soon. They'll just prove you right eventually. It's just a matter of time. They know that too. They've got to do exactly what you, like we said today, it's all predictable. So we just predict it, and then they prove us right. So, the ball is in our court, everybody, because they're just going to prove us right the further they go. It's just it's a numbers game, unfortunately.
Yeah, and as soon as people realise that they're the one that can make the difference, us, all 7-8 billion of us, rather than just a handful of elitists, then we've got half a chance. So, Rich, it's me and you all week this week, isn't it, mate? So we're back tomorrow. As always, Trending was brought to you with Iconic Coffee. If you head over to shop.iconic.com, use the code Trending. That'll get you 10% off that. And any profits made basically go back into Iconic to try and provide as much content as we can to hopefully wake up some people to what's going on. It's an interesting time, Rich, isn't it, mate?
It really is. And Jamie's on holiday, by the way, so don't worry. He's not lost in the woods on the cycle ride. He did make it home. He's got a week off, so we haven't just left him in the middle of England in the woods there.
No.
Have we?
Well, I don't know. Although I wish I'd left my backside in the woods, because it feels like it's separate from me at the moment. And on that bombshell, we'll see you tomorrow. Take care, Rich, mate.
See you later.